Recently, I've been thinking a lot about what makes a work of art good, or bad for that matter. What I've found is that there's no simple answer. When you actually take a look at all the great artists, past and present, you realize that the value placed on a work of art, or the artist's entire portfolio, relies on a combination of so many things, any judgment loses its meaning. Sure, good art has pleasing composition, interesting subject matter, maybe the use of line and shape. Values are good. Art has values, right? The use of soft and hard edges, and the list goes on. All of that, however, falls under the umbrella of execution. But there are some other things that make an artist or work of art great. For example, an artist's individual style, that thing that transcends formal teaching. Or what about historical context? Or just age in general? We tend to show respect to a thing that is good for its time, or art that's from a mysterious period in history. You see what I mean? It's almost as if there's nothing an artist can do to become universally valued. The value is appraised by the individual viewer. So instead of pontificating on the meaning and origin of art and aesthetics, I've decided to explore the works of the visual artists that have left an impression on me. As someone who appreciates comic book art and illustration, I have my own criteria for what makes an artist great. Some of the things are specific to my own life and experiences, and others coincide with typical art critique methods. Without any further delay, let's talk about one of my favorite artists. Enter Andrea Sorrentino. Andrea Sorrentino was born in 1982 in Naples, Italy. He got his first big break illustrating for Wildstorm, drawing God of War comics, and has since drawn comics for Marvel, DC, and Image. I was first introduced to Andrea Sorrentino's art through his work on Old Man Logan. You know Old Man Logan, comic book inspiration for arguably the greatest comic book movie of all time. That's a subject for another video. Upon seeing Andrea Sorrentino's work, I was immediately captivated by his style and ability to create interesting composition using graphic design elements. Andrea Sorrentino's books are not typically the type of books I would pick up because he typically draws horror, thriller, comics, or comics about a post-apocalyptic landscape where he maximizes the eerie feeling characterized by these genres by masterfully laying out a sequence of images. Like I said, horror and thriller genres in any medium are not the type that I usually gravitate towards, but the fact that Andrea Sorrentino was able to kickstart my journey into these genres is a testament to his style. It's a staple of comics to use big blocks of shadow to illustrate the world a comic book story takes place in. But even this simple convention can be ripped off of and made into something stylistically unique to an individual. Andrea Sorrentino's style uses rough, jagged lines that create interesting silhouettes and remove the opportunity for simple gradients. The type of gradients that would come about from hatching or cross-hatching. Andrea instead emphasizes shape and stipulates that color artists use minimal rendering, if any. This is a type of style I can appreciate, a style that uses the bare minimum to create form. Some of my favorite artists seem like they have a similar thought process, while also having drastically different outcomes. But let's get back to Andrea Sorrentino. Another thing that makes his style unique is that he allows color into his block dark lines. Whether that be from completely coloring his line art, or if it's from soft brush colored dodge glow effects that add a sense of atmospheric perspective to the piece. As a comic book artist, Andrea Sorrentino makes graphical and compositional choices that emphasize the feelings he wants the audience to feel at any given moment. Composition is one of those things that can and probably should be learned towards the beginning of one's art journey. Regardless of the skill level of the artist, how developed their style is, or even the subject matter that is being conveyed, if the artist has good composition, their art is almost assured to be pleasing to the eye. In all honesty, I probably need to focus on learning this better, but I know good composition when I see it. Let's look at this interior page that Andrea Sorrentino did for Old Man Logan. Immediately, you can see Andrea Sorrentino invoke the rule of thirds by putting Wolverine's head a third of the way down from the top and a third of the way in from the right. You can also see a balanced composition with 4 main focal elements, the main one of course being Wolverine's head and 3 minor focal elements. Wolverine's hand and claw, which are used to highlight who the character is and the pain he feels, the cursed effects in the top left, which are used to show that Wolverine is stuck, literally a prisoner, to repeating the same homicidal cycle of watching his loved ones die and then getting revenge for them. Lastly, the final focal element is made up of the avatars of everyone that has died, seemingly because they were acquainted with Wolverine. The direction that the composition takes your eye is a circular one. There are clear breaks in play here that prevent your eye from trailing off the page and instead keeps your eye engaged in the composition. Personally, I can look at this image for ages without getting bored because it's just pleasing to look at. And it's just one of many examples of the masterful composition Andrea Sorrentino employs within a single panel. But even more so than the composition elements Andrea Sorrentino utilizes in a single panel, I think Andrea Sorrentino is a master of using a sequence of pictures to emphasize a final image in that sequence or move along the story. In general, the beautiful thing about comics is that comics utilize sequential images to tell a story, but not just that. When used effectively, images can be organized in a way that makes a group of images more interesting than the sum of its parts. Seamless stitching of panels and subject matter into a pleasing sequence has allowed Andrea Sorrentino to create some of my favorite action sequences in comics. This ability to create pleasing sequencing is an especially important trick because Andrea Sorrentino typically works on horror or thriller comics, both of which are genres that hinge on their ability to create a sense of intrigue, mystery, and discomfort that culminates in a jump scare or reveal that verifies that the user's fears are valid. It's a continuous cycle of making the user ask, "What is this weird situation?" then making them think that there might be something to be afraid of, and then finally, make them afraid. For most mediums, instilling fear in the audience hinges on not actually showing the audience what they should be afraid of until the right moment. Of course, every medium has their quirks. In comics, we don't have a tight control of timing when compared to film, and the image of our monster is not typically a complete figment of the reader's imagination like it would be in literature. In that way, we have to treat our stories slightly different. Horror comics do hide their mysterious boogeyman, but the good horror comics that I've read rely more on contrast and storytelling to evoke emotion. For example, the last sequence was from Andrea Sorrentino's Gideon Falls. Andrea Sorrentino uses a woodcut texture that emphasizes the audience's feeling that there might be something wrong with the main character, or at the very least, something is wrong with the world the story takes place in. Add some hazy washed out colors, complemented by mysterious characters, and you're well on your way to establishing a sense of tension in the reader. This tension is maintained as the reader explores the world of Gideon Falls, until finally the reader is called to be afraid. Andrea Sorrentino is truly a master of his craft, and as a comic book artist, his craft involves guiding readers to a story by using art to convey and create emotion. I hope this video has shown you why Andrea Sorrentino is one of my favorite artists. Let me know what artists you enjoy in the comments. I'm always interested in learning about new artists, or at least artists that are new to me. Anyway, this video is winding down now, but I plan on turning this into an ongoing series. And now that it is all said and done, I realize I've committed the cardinal sin of showing my work alongside the work of masters. However, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so that I know that my sins are forgiven. In any case, I hope to see you again. Be safe, take care, and later days.